when she was scrapped, I was determined that I would bloody well do something to try and save the Daldy. Well,
Yeah.
I got to know Bruce McWilliams, and that's how it all turned out that way. When she laid up, I used to go, I was running a tug there, I was running the Tika at the time, and skippering her, and I used to go alongside the Daldy and jump aboard and clean the scuppers out. She was laying in Captain Cook West on the city side, you know, and I used to clean the scuppers and everything out to make sure she kept dry. And I was trying to think, who the hell can we get in touch with about it? And I was asking different blokes. Oh no, let the bloody thing go. Well, the Harbour Board said they would like to think about anybody can come up with a good scheme for her, you know, come ahead. So one of the people I went and saw was Harry Julian. He'd just bought the blue boats from Mary George, and I said to him, Harry, what's the story about the Daldy? He said, well, if anyone came up with a good scheme for it, we'll do it. Well, I said, look, we're thinking of, I'd met Bruce Williams by this side, and I said, we're thinking of putting her back in survey and run her as a passenger vehicle on this harbour. That thing will never steam on this harbour again. I said, Harry, we're going to prove you wrong. No, she won't steam on this harbour again. And of course, we proved him wrong. Oh, the first thing I did was I went and saw the harbour master. What about a cover on Daldy's funnel? The engineers are going to do it. Okay, went and saw the engineers. The harbour master's going to do it. So I thought, bugger you. I said, if we're going to save this vessel, I want to keep the water out of the funnel as much as we possibly can. They were turning her engines over once a week. Both engines were being turned over, but I knew that wouldn't last very long. You know, not for something that's possibly going to scrap. I'd measured up the Daldy's funnels, see what size and that with her, and I made this bloody great cover for them. Jesus. And I thought, that's all right. When it's finished, I'll grab what we called the transport, and that was the pile driving rig, and they were steam driven. And the bigger one of the two, she had quite a high reach, so I thought, that's good, she can drop the funnel cover on top. And couldn't she hell? We got it up in the air, and the top of the funnel was like that, and it was just about like this. She couldn't reach it, because Daldy was ample of coal and all that sort of thing, and water and everything. And so we got it, and right, just hang on, and I shot up the funnel and put a line on the other side, and I said, here, buggers, you get on the end of this bloody line, and I'll push on the other side. We got it on. So I threw a net over it and lashed it down, you know, and it was made of ply and braced up with timber and everything like that. So that was done that way. And in fact, the photos, you can see some of the photos we got in the very first place. We started talking to them and everything and that, and they said, well, look, we'll put you around on Bledisloe East. And it was a damn good berth. It was just a single ship berth, and as you can see here, there was the roll-on, roll-off wharf here. Yeah. And it was an excellent place. We were out the way because the breastwork, came like that, and when she coaled, all we needed to do was drop the coal in one side, pull her across on the line. I just used to leap in with the tug and push around onto the main quay side going along there. They could coal that side, you know, you didn't have to move, you didn't need steam or anything. And so I did that regularly. And we had a chap who was a wharfie. You talk about the wharfies. Yeah. He used to come down, leave the ship and come round to the Daldy and organise the coal being put down below. During the day, it didn't matter what time. Old Jimmy Cullen was his name. He's passed away now. And so it worked out very good. But that was basically what we got to. And when we went up and saw the Harbour Board, we had about half a dozen meetings and so. And Bob Carr was the chairman of the board in those days. There was Captain Forbes. He said, scrap it. He says, the stinking smoky thing steaming round the harbour, get rid of it. And Bob Carr, he was more for it, sailing, keeping it, you know, with some good one. In fact, I think it was him in the first place who said, well, look, we'll see if we can get some good work for her, you know, and do something with her. Bob Carr said, all right. He says, look, we'll agree to you having it for 2 years at $10 a year if asked for. That's his exact words. We never paid $10. We ended up paying $1 in the end. And that was quite a bit later because the Harbour Board hung on to the ownership of it and leased it to us for all these, I just forget how many years. It must have been about, it was just before the Harbour Board finished up, and that was 88, so it must have been like 10 years. They were still sort of in a way, but we had a pretty good free hand. After we'd got hold of the lease and that we could have her, we worked like hell on her for, it must have been 18 months. And then at the end of 1979, I took her across for the first time to the dry dock, and she hadn't been out of the water for 5 years. That's right, they hadn't touched her. They thought, well, no, she's going to finish up. And she had, on her propellers and on the hull, there were mussels of about 4 inches in length, plus the seaweed hanging down 18 to 20 inches or so. And we had so little money that we scraped it all off by hand, all the heavy stuff, and then we got a water blaster in after that. And we did all this ourselves, you know. They put us in the dry dock with the several ships. There was the oil barge was the first one, and then the Cowrie of the Union Company, it was in there. So we just floated up and dropped back down. And we had to lay the cables out from the anchors. We laid all them out, the anchor down, of course, and so the Marine Department could check them thoroughly and that and see if they were okay. Well, all that went well, and then anniversary day in January of 1980, we took her out for the first time with passengers. At first we were told that we weren't allowed to take her out of the harbour limits. So a lot of letters in there between us and the Marine Department, and one of the Marine Department blokes, he was very much against it. I think he would have seen us scrapped, if you know. And he seemed to put an obstacle every time we asked. We said, well, look, going down to Waiheke and down those places is quite shallow between Bean Rock and the Motuhihi Passage. And so, oh, no, you'll be harbour limits. Can we go from, we applied to go from Rangitoto Light, that was one of the boundaries, Rangitoto Light, and can we go from there down to the Rakino Passage because of the shoalness through the basin there? No, but anyway, we won out, and when we got further, we worked on it, we kept on going to them all the time. They probably got right brassed off about it, and okay, well, look, you can do that. Then we said, well, what about going up to Kowau and that, you know? Oh, first of all, the first long trip we did actually was, no, it wasn't the first long trip, no, it was a bit later, that's right. So we finally worked out, and the furthest we actually did, we came up the Bay of Islands on the Bicentenary up here. Unfortunately, we didn't do our homework 100%, but it worked out. We didn't make a loss on it either. We came up here. We'd organised for the train, a train to come up from Glenbrook Vintage Railway and bring the coal up for us and this sort of thing. And of course the line went right through to Opua in those days, doesn't now. And so we got that part done, and it didn't work out too well with passengers, but it was a damn good trip, and the enthusiasm with the people on it, the crew and everything like that was excellent. You know, couldn't have asked for better. Even now it would work out very well, I'm certain of it. And so that was our very first trip, and we worked a long time. We worked right up to Queen's birthday, I think, that weekend, but it was a waste of time, really, you know, once you got it past the end of April or so. Yeah. We got quite a number, but we managed to come clear profit-wise in the end. We didn't have much, but we was in the black all right still, you know, so that was good. The one trip you're saying about the old skipper, old Bill Wright, he'd been master of her in the 1940s, 1950s and that like that. We were lucky enough to find him, and we found where he was living, but he had shifted a couple of days before. She chased him up and got to him, finally got hold of him. And so we said, well, we're going to do the trip 1986, February the 27th, I think the date was. It was the 50th reenactment, or enactment of 50 years previous, when the Harbour Board took the brand new tug from England for a trip up to Territory Martangi. And we'd arranged for a launch and that to take them ashore and everything like that. And old Bill Wright, he came down. He was in a, I think he was well in his 80s then, and he came down on board. I said to Bill, I said, "Okay, Bill, you haven't handled the vessel for a long time." I said, "But you're going to take her out." "Oh, I can't do it." I said, "Look, Bill, I'll stand here. All you need to say to me is take her over, and I will." And I said, "I'll stand by the telegraphs, you tell me what to do." And so he did that. We loaded our passengers aboard there, and I think there was about 30 or more of them aboard, and we got off and headed towards towards Terry. I was skipper of the day, and we had the Auckland Star photographer on board and reporter, and we're standing there just before we left. The reporter said to Bill, he says, "Captain Wright," he said, "just could you turn around and face me, facing aft?" He says, "While I take a photo with the old Auckland behind you." There's still a lot of old buildings around there before they demolished the blasted place. And so he did. Well, evidently, I don't know whether you knew the workings of these type of telegraphs, but they were a chain over the top section, and they ran down to wires, and then of course wires back to chain round the section down in the engine room. And over the years, of course, and particularly in a tugboat that use it immensely, they just started to wear and start to slip and things, and they had to be permanently adjusted all the time, you know. And so they decided to put these electric ones in, and that's what she's had ever since. Of course, it was one of those, I think, that might have caused, well, it's officially caused the crash into the Fremantle Star. But the story I did hear was that the fuse in the electric telegraph failed when they were trying to send the orders down to the engine room from the bridge, and that could very well have been the story of the problem. There was too much power and too much headway on the tug, and she just clambered into the side of the Fremantle Star, damaged the Fremantle Star with quite a good dent into her, and of course Daldie flattened her nose on the starboard side and looked like a punch-drunk bloomin' boxer or something. And of course luckily, the new Daldie, which is the Voice Schneider, one of the modern tugs, she was running late on the building of her up in Whangarei. So they decided to repair the Daldie and put it back into service for the period of just on something like about, I think it must have been about 15 months or so. So if it hadn't been for that, for the new Daldie being late, the Daldie would not exist now, I wouldn't think.